couple of minutes checking in to make sure everybody's good with what we got to do between here and the end of the semester, so there's no confusion. You guys are feeling good. We all feel better when we know what the plan is, right? All right, so here's the plan. Today, we're going to be moving like a bullet train in Japan through Chapter 7, and the reason being, you guys got a crash course in Chapter 7 on Monday when we had Kate from Career Services come in and do the mock interview training. By the way, those of you who were at the center on Tuesday, any feedback, anything you'd like to offer from your experience? So, Ian, did you enjoy the experience?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool to do something for someone else.
Yeah, it was. So if you had to put in your own words the kind of constituents we were dealing with, how would you describe it?
Just like middle-aged people, maybe with multiple underlying kids, and
lots of struggles, right?
Yeah.
And Carter, would you add anything?
I thought they were more engaged with this one than the last one I was at. Yeah, she got more out of this one.
I would agree too. I think that the folks were definitely ready to really get in on this one. I was surprised how in some of them were, especially for the mock interviews. So it was a good session. But what we're up against, guys, is we have a few folks. I think this is a comprehensive list of folks who have not done any outreach or service yet. Guys, we have one more session coming up, and it's going to be the Tuesday we get back from Christmas, or not Christmas, from Thanksgiving, I should say. And this is going to be on financial literacy. So are all of you guys, everybody who's listed on that list, are you all available for a trip that day? Now, that would mean we're leaving at 12:15. We're getting back around 2:30. If you guys, anybody on this list, if you need excuses for other classes, email me so I can get you excused. I'll get the materials to you over email next day or so. We'll cover them Monday afternoon whenever we get back from Thanksgiving break. Now, guys, everybody's supposed to have 5 hours of service on this. Has anybody logged their hours already? If you haven't, that's okay. I'm going to show you guys how you do that right now before we get in. Guys, the way you log your service hours, if you're in Canvas, if you go right to the modules page, up top you'll see it says service hours. If you click in here, what this is a hyperlink to the Center for Community Engagement. Click in here. I'm asking you to go in and follow the instructions to log your hours. So you would go in to record your service hours. And I'm giving you permission too. If you've already done service and you want to log in, I don't know why the Google account's not coming up. Probably because I'm not logged into my Gmail right now. So you have to be logged into your St. Francis Gmail. But just follow the prompts for logging your hours. Be generous with yourself on this. And here's what I mean. If you think you worked an hour and 40 minutes, I'm saying you worked 2 hours. You get what I'm throwing down here? So in other words, be generous with your hours. If you did prep work for some of this stuff, if you did prep for presentations, if you helped get ready for the presentation, if you practice, to me that's also a service hour. For Richard, you just coming in, I'm showing everybody you can get into log your service hours. You need to log 5 of them. If you go in through Canvas, go to modules and go to service hours. I'm giving you guys permission to do that in class today if you've already done some service hours. Is there anybody here who's done service who feels they're really far off from the 5 hours they need? We're all being honest here. I actually may need some folks to do some additional compiling of some surveys as well. So anybody who has not done their service hours yet or feels they need some extra hours, give me a couple minutes at the end of the class today and we'll get that plan completely worked out. Any questions on that, guys? That all make sense? All right, guys, let's continue. In terms of the reflection document, I'm going to be also asking everybody in this class, you're going to get 10 easy points just for filling out a reflection that I'm going to send you. In other words, you're going to reflect on the work you did for the Center for Community Action. Tell me what you learned from it. I'm not critiquing your grammar. I'm not critiquing the length of your essay. I'm not critiquing your opinion. I want you to tell me what you thought about it. For example, if your reflection, when I give you this form, is this was a terrible experience and it's something I never want to do ever again, that's 10 points. If you write that it was life-changing and you really enjoyed it, that's also 10 points. I'm just asking you to be honest. I am also going to make some class time in one of our other classes for you to do a survey for the Center for Community Engagement so that they know how to gear this stuff as well. We'll do that sometime during our next few classes. Guys, we have an assignment that's due on the 27th. I'm going to cover this in some depth before we get into the material today. I'm asking yourself to put yourself in the mindset of a recruiter. This was from our last chapter on recruiting. It was on chapter 5. You're the head of recruitment at KPT Guitars. All right, actually chapter 6, I'm sorry. KPT Guitars builds high-quality, American-made guitars, and they build right here in Loretto, Pennsylvania. We had a lead builder who had a heart attack and needed to retire. So this guy has been with the company 25 years. He's your big period of expertise, and he was the guy who was responsible for all your best-selling designs. So the actual makings of your business came from this guy's designs. Right now, you've got employees, most of them have been there for about 10 years, and you've got a very consistent workforce, because here you are in Loretto. All but 10 of the people who work for your company are white men. So you have one white female, though, and she's been with the company for about 2 years. Somebody's even noticed that on her break, she's been sketching designs for a guitar. Although you're still selling guitars right now, you're noticing that your company's designs are getting bad reviews. People are saying that they're out of date, they don't look good anymore. It's kind of like Gibson or Fender, if you know anything about electric guitars for real. They're saying it's getting old. So what I'm asking you to tell me in 1 to 3 pages, how are you going to recruit a new lead builder? Are you going to do internal, external, or both? Are you going to recruit internally, externally, or both? How might you get the word out about this particular service or position you're hiring for? It's a pretty specialized position, is it not? Yeah, building guitars is not something everybody does. And what concerns might you have in terms of the recruiting process? For example, if you recruit internally, what message are you sending to your staff? We trust you. If you recruit externally, you might get people who have better skills and better experience, but you might also be disenfranchising people who work for you. So I'm asking you to answer those 4 questions in 1 to 3 pages. Be direct, guys. I know we're at the end of the semester, and I know you guys are overwhelmed with papers right now. How many of you are working on a major paper in another class? How many of you have big exams coming in the next 2 weeks? All right, make this easy on yourselves. Make it direct. 1 page is great so long as you use complete sentences and explain yourself well. Check your grammar. Make sure you're addressing the questions I'm answering. This should be an easy, good grade for everybody. All right, guys, this is the other stuff that you need to be concerned about right now. On the 2nd, your next assignment that's going to be due is a Chapter 8 and 9 online quiz. Here's the deal. I provide 2 YouTube videos and a very basic test inclusive of a bonus question in which you can also use all the slides, the book, and the material to take the test. This should be an easy 10 out of 10 for everybody. Boost your test grade up. I'm counting it as a full test. Our final exam is going to be on no more than 2 chapters. That's all we have time for. We're gonna finish. I shouldn't say 2 chapters. It'll be 2 chapters, 10 and 11, and that's going to be on the Wednesday of final exams. Easy peasy. Make sense, guys? What questions do you have? Guys, I'm going to ask you to really get on logging your service hours too. We want to close that out so that's documented. You're welcome to do that during class today. What I am going to do, though, however, because it is the season for idea evaluations, I emailed you all a link to my idea eval. Can one of you get into your email and make sure that link opens for you? Okay. Guys, I'm going to leave the room while you do my between here and the end of the semester. Does anybody have any questions or concerns that I can address before we get into today? I know we're going to be moving at a good clip today, and I want to make sure that we did that, to have that opportunity for discussion. And as we get down, check this out, guys, when you think about it, because we'll be here Friday, but we have Friday, we have Monday, and we have 3 more classes. We're down to, after today, our last 5 classes in here. It's a lot. One of those classes is going to be taken up with the test too. So your final is going to be pretty darned small. That's to say the least. We left off talking about reliability and validity, guys. Who can tell me the difference? What's the difference between something that's reliable and something that's valid? I know the answers are up on the screen, but put it in your own words. What's the difference between the two? Something that's reliable versus being valid. What's the difference? Put it this way. Let's put it in a work context. If somebody's reliable, they always show up. If the work they do kind of sucks, they might not be that valid. So they're showing up, but they're not really doing much there. It's the same when we're gathering information. Reliability means how well does something measure what it was intended to measure. Validity means, does that measure really tell us anything? So the test constantly comes back. We're getting 10 out of 10 in terms of our employee satisfaction measures, but people are still leaving the company in droves. So the reliability and validity of the test don't necessarily measure up. And these are things we use to try to screen. For example, concurrent validity means if we take a test or a measure or some measure or predictor of success against people who currently work in our company versus people who might work in our company someday, this sounds more complicated than what it is. If we are trying to interview people to predict if they're going to be good hires, that's predictive validity. We interviewed and we said, okay, we decided all our instructors need to have master's degrees. And if they all have master's degrees, our idea evaluations will go up. Well, if we hire nothing but people with master's degrees and PhDs, and the ideas go up, well, that on its face is a pretty valid kind of criteria. If we say, well, we've got to have all PhDs and master's degrees, and we get rid of all the bachelor degree people we're hiring, and our performance doesn't go up, then our predictive validity is not good. We also have something called concurrent validity, which means that we measure what we are saying is important against how people are actually performing at that given point in time. When you see it illustrated, it makes a little more sense. Let me make this big for you. Concurrent validity versus predictive validity. Predictive validity means if somebody's coming into our office and they want a job with us and we hire them, we might give them a test, score the test, and we see that we have results. For example, we did a math or an intelligence test. How did people score coming in? And did that predict a good employee? Let's compare that by giving the same test to people who already work here and compare the two results. If we're seeing that our high performers that we already have also score higher on the test, and the folks who are new hires also score higher on the test, that means, for example, the test might be valid. Because what we want our outcomes to be are better performance, for example. So if these two results correlate, we've got a valid test. If the correlation does not, or they don't correlate, we don't have a valid test. I don't mean to oversimplify, but what the bottom line is with these kinds of tests, you want to make sure you're measuring something that it makes sense to measure. Let me give you an example. If we want to see if somebody is an effective janitor, somebody's good at cleaning a building, what might be some indicators that person would be good to hire as a janitor? What would say this person will be successful in that role? Experience, for sure, definitely. What else, maybe? If somebody comes in and says, I want $55 an hour, they're going to make a good janitor? Probably not. Their salary scale is way out of whack. That's more like an executive. This person have a good history. Do they have skills, for example? They know how to do small maintenance. Those are all predictors of somebody who would be a good janitor. Whether or not somebody has a master's degree, is that a good predictor of whether or not somebody's going to be a good janitor? Although there are plenty of people with master's degrees who are less smart than a lot of people who work as janitors, that doesn't necessarily mean it's predicting that that's going to be something that will be a success predicting criteria. So again, what we're doing is comparing employee scores versus people who just applied to see if the tests are measuring up. So one of the other things we want to think about, we make the mistake sometimes of judging people by one thing. For example, can anybody here think of a time when they judge somebody on a criteria? Let me think how I want to ask this question. When you judge somebody by a single criteria, what is a way where we are often judged? Appearance. Yeah, so we judge people by appearance. And we have a saying in the business that somebody is an empty suit. And that means somebody looks good in a suit and tie, but cannot produce where it counts. In the same essence that you don't want to judge somebody just by the way they look, you want to give them also multiple ways in which you can judge if they're going to be good in a position. So, for example, a multiple hurdles approach means we might have the idea that people have to perform well in a given number of areas. So let's say, for example, we're hiring somebody to be a college professor. We may be saying on a scale of 1 to 5, they have to hit at least a 3 on interpersonal skills, but they've got to hit a 4 when it comes to scholarship and academic achievement, maybe a 2 when it comes to publications. It means you've got multiple things you're going to evaluate somebody, and there's different cutoffs for each one. Makes sense so far, guys? Think numerical scales. And then we also have the idea of a compensatory approach. And that might mean we evaluate somebody on a variety of factors, and we evaluate them on a score out of 100. Sound familiar? What does that sound like to you guys? It's like a test score, doesn't it? Yeah, so what did you get out of 100? Oh, well, this candidate, when we evaluated their personality skills, their academic rankings, their resume, their experience, they did well in these areas, but when we're scoring them on a point value system, does one person score higher than another? That might decide who you're going to hire, for example. Some of the other things you want to think about whenever you are deciding what something should be worth on an interview. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you were evaluating me, because I use myself here because you guys know college professors. You deal with them enough. I'm going to put 3 criteria up on the board, and I want you to tell me which ones are the most important for somebody who is a successful college teacher. If I had a marker that worked, but I don't have a marker that works. So I will just say them out loud, and I'll ask you guys, let's see if this putrid green one works. Yes, it does. So we got personality. That is a terrible color of green. It's like Grinch green. So if we have personality, we have technical skills, and what I mean by that, not technology, but skills in their discipline, and experience. If you were looking at a stack of candidates who were coming in to interview for my job, because you guys know what it takes to do my job, of those 3, how would you rank them in order of importance? Which is the most important for success in this job?
Your job.
For my job.
Was that last mistake?
Sorry that you can't read that well. Experience. So we've got personality, technical skills, and experience. Yes, how would you rank them?
I would say experience. The second one and the first one.
Okay, so we go experience, technical skills, and personality, and that's a valid way to look at this. Does anybody feel different? Yes. Different people can come out in different ways. Anybody else feel different? Yes.
Yeah, I'd say that that's the order that's on the board. Personality, skills, and experience.
And you may even decide that they're all 3 equally important. You know, you could say, well, if we split this into 33.3%, on each one of these, they're all equally important. You're going to make that decision when you are looking at a job. I encourage you, though, to think about taking these criteria and weighting them based on what's related to the job or what's a business necessity. Does a janitor have to have a great personality to be a great janitor? It helps, but it doesn't. Somebody can be a great person and tell great jokes, but if they're standing around with a broom all day and not cleaning, they're not a good janitor. So even somebody with a great personality can be a terrible janitor. On the same token, by show of hands, who here has ever had an instructor that you knew was smart as hell but couldn't teach? We've all been in that classroom. So you got to decide job relatedness and business necessity. And any way we determine if somebody's good or could be predicted to be good or bad at a job, we call it a test. Whether we're giving somebody a quantitative test to see if they're going to be a good accountant, or if we're giving them a personality test. We talked a little bit, too, in terms of applicants and job previews, for example. More and more people are submitting job applications and resumes online. Makes sense. It's how we do everything these days. If you receive a resume from someone, this is anecdotal, but I would write this down because it almost always turns up on a test. If you receive a resume from somebody in electronic format, if you get an email where somebody says, here's my resume, even if you did not advertise the job, treat that resume as though it were a job application. Doesn't mean they're going to get the job. Put it on file, acknowledge that you received it. If that person comes back at you later on and asks if you got that application, you have to be able to say what you did with it. Here's why I'm saying this, guys. There have been instances when people have sued companies for discrimination, saying they have not been accurately considered, they were not adequately considered because nobody responded, nobody wrote them back and said there was no search taking place, nobody acknowledged the application. From an HR standpoint, keep that documentation. If somebody contacts you making interest about a job, assume it as though it were an application. There's nothing wrong with writing that person back and saying, we're not taking applications right now, there's no open job. If you don't acknowledge it, you're putting yourself in a position for a world of hurt. With me so far? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying it's what it is. We talked in the last chapter about why realistic job previews are a good idea. They're a good idea because nobody likes to feel sucker punched. If you see what the job is all about, You're going to set yourself up to have the right applicants apply. Who here was here when we showed the Sheets job preview? Yeah, you guys remember. Sounds like a pretty tough job at times, doesn't it? You're working late nights. You got to have a lot of energy. And if you like donuts, it might be the job for you, apparently. So she really liked donuts. In terms of how this whole process works, guys, I know this is hard to read, but it's right out of our text. From the time that somebody expresses interest in your job or in a position with your company, this is a general idea how the whole process goes. First, we got an applicant who's interested. Somebody says, wow, that's a company I want to work for. Then we go through pre-employment screening. And that could mean, for example, somebody may have to fill out a questionnaire on a website to see if they even have close to the right application or right criteria to be able to apply. At that point, not all companies do pre-employment screening. Some do, some do not. Then we get to the application form, which could be online or personal. That goes in basically to an online system or even a paper system. At that point, you can do a test or an interview or both. Some companies do one or the other. Some do a screening interview. Some do both. Is it realistic to assume that after you've had a job interview, before you get a job offer, that they might ask to do a background investigation on you? Is that a realistic expectation in 2019? Yeah, they're cheap and easy. So it's a good assumption that if you're a candidate for a job, you're going to do a background investigation or have a background investigation on you. After that, you might be called back for another interview. Particularly if it's a government job, they want to make sure your record's clear. They want to make sure your record's clear before you're good to go. So then we also get into the idea of what we refer to as a conditional job offer. And that means, for example, I'm saying we really like you, we want you for the job, we want you to take a P test to make sure you're not using illegal drugs. Write this down. This always is on the test. Like 100% of the time, this question will be on the test. Can you ask somebody to take a drug screen without a conditional offer of employment? You cannot. And it comes down to a lot of companies do it, a lot of companies break the law. You cannot give somebody a drug test legally without giving them a conditional offer of employment. Finally, after you get the clear test, you get job placement. By the way, guys, a lot of people ask me, it's 2019, and more states are legalizing cannabis all the time. Can employers in states where cannabis is legal not hire people for using cannabis? Anybody have an opinion? What do you think the answer is? Yes?
I think it might depend on your work. If you're consuming cannabis and it's affecting your work performance, they have the rights to say that you are not the right person for that.
Like if you work for a pizza place, it might be like a work-related hazard. You'd be eating all the product. You know, none of the pizza would go out. Terrible joke. I'm sorry. But what it comes down to is, see, somebody laughed at it. My wife wouldn't have laughed at that joke, but you laughed at it. Thank you for making my day. Anyway, here's the rule of the law, guys. States are, state by state, decriminalizing cannabis. They're saying, or they're even flat out legalizing it. You can go to Oregon, you can go to Colorado. Hell, you can go to Washington, D.C. Like the capital of the country, cannabis is legal. At a federal level, however, is cannabis legal? It is not. So in all 50 states of the Union, if an employer wants to do a drug screen on you to see if you're using an illegal substance, they can still choose not to hire you for using cannabis, even if it's legal at the state level. Because at the federal level, basically here's the condition of the law. It's still on the books. It's a controlled substance. It's illegal. The DEA is choosing not to enforce the law. That is exactly what is happening right now. Why is this a problem for employers? What do you think, guys? So we've got the feds who are choosing not to enforce drug law. We've got states that are legalizing use of recreational marijuana. Why is that a problem for employers? Yes?
People might not realize that that's the case. You just had to do that.
That's exactly right. If the state you're in says this is perfectly legal, you can buy it over the counter and you're within your right as an 18 or 21-year-old to use it. And the same token, employers are enforcing a federal statute. It's very confusing for everybody. I think what would make life easier for everyone if the feds would finally make a decision on this. Either say yes or no and make it the law of the land, either enforce it or don't. I think that would make it easier for everybody. Do you guys agree or disagree? What are your thoughts? How many of you, by show of hands, think that we're going to see actual legalization inside the next 5 years? I do too. I think it's one of these things that we've got so many people. My statement of this is not an endorsement or a denouncement of it. You guys can make up your own minds. That is a very personal decision. I think it's absolutely stupid to be losing out on tax revenue. And right now, if you go to Colorado, if you go to Oregon, if you go to D.C., do you think any of those shops are putting all their money in the bank? I wouldn't. If I were making money off that kind of an industry, why would I put my money into a federal institution that could seize my assets with the stroke of a pen? It's a cash-only economy, and you bet your butt the federal government is losing out on big tax dollars by not legalizing this. So even if you disagree with it philosophically, it's a cash cow. So I just legalized a statement on marijuana on a recording. So if anyone wants to watch my YouTube channel and get my opinions on legalized cannabis, everybody will be hanging on them everywhere, I'm sure. Anyway, put this on the recording too, just to clarify. I've never used it. Honest to God, never touched it in my life. I have lots of people that I know in the area who have. Not my thing. If it's theirs, that's their business. All right, pre-employment screening. Guys, we have lots of ways that we screen. For example, your resume has to have good spacing and good use of space, good use of layout, or you might get screened out of an electronic system simply because your resume didn't look correct. What are some things that can make your resume hard to scan on an automated system? Yes? I'm sorry? Yeah, templates don't always work very well. Plainer is generally better. Is there anything else that does not translate well for a scanner? Who here is, yes? Right. If you use an encrypted PDF, you can't copy or paste. Traditional PDFs you can, but yeah, that can be problematic as well. How many of you have a picture of yourself on your resume? Some people are doing that these days. It looks great. It looks great in print. It's wonderful, but it can also mess with scanners too. I encourage you to have a very business vanilla-looking resume for online submissions. So it can hurt you. They might also look right off the bat. Does this person have the right degree, right knowledge, skills, and abilities? So you might get disqualified from applying simply because you have the wrong background, for example. In terms of other things too, guys, I think it's a reasonable expectation in 2019 and beyond. Do you think your employer, the person who's interested in hiring you, are they going to be looking at your social media? Who here, by show of hands, who here thinks their employer is going to look at their social media? I agree with you guys. I think it's a foolish thing to think in 2019 they're not going to check out your Instagram, your Facebook, anything that they have public access to. And here's the thing, guys. There are many ways online to get past somebody's password using publicly available software to be able to do it. Now, in terms of applications, guys, your application basically says, I'm interested in the job. Applications repeat a lot of the information on the employee or the potential employee, but they're good to do as well because you're entering somebody's system. This is an unofficial statement, but it holds true. I said this to my Business 101 class this morning. Guys, an open job application, I don't mean to overly romanticize this, is like somebody posting a dating profile. It's like saying, this is my ideal love of my life. I want this person to have long hair and enjoy long walks on the beach and have a good sense of humor. I want them to own their own brewery. I want them to make me kept like I've always wanted to be kept, so I quit my job and be a house husband. And I want them to, shower me with all kinds of gifts and affection all the time. That's what I want to make. In reality, that never happens. Like what usually happens is you still aren't working. Occasionally you get yelled at by the person who you still love very much. And all those visions you have of long walks on the beach turn into fights about whether or not you left the seat up. That's the way the relationship really turns out. The biggest fights in your relationship will go about the smallest things. It's the same with employers, guys. Employers say, oh yeah, we want somebody who's got a 4.0, who's got a certification in project management, who is quantitative, qualitative, and has great people skills, and also is somebody who's willing to work 80-hour weeks and doesn't want health care. Then they want all of those things. In reality, if you see a job that you don't feel you're a perfect match for, because you're missing something, like they want 4 years of experience and you've got 2. They want a master's degree and you've got a bachelor's. Apply for the job. They're asking for an ideal that probably does not exist. Does that make sense, guys? I went off a little bit there, too much thinking about my ideal mate, and I never found that rich woman who owns a brewery yet. I told my wife if I get propositioned by some woman who owns her own brewery and wants to keep me as a house husband, she's going to have to step it up. So far, she doesn't feel threatened at all. And the fact is, I think she even said something like, you know where the door is, or something like that. My wife's awesome, though. She should come in and talk to you guys sometime. You'll tell her I say nothing but nice things about her. Anyway, all this stuff, guys, goes into a record. And you might get the job that you were applying for, or you might get one you didn't apply for. You might get an offer just for being in the system. Some of the other things that we need to talk about. We have something called at-will employment. Guys, who here, I know we got several of you in my management 203 class. I'm not going to put you guys on the spot, but I'm going to put the rest of the class on the spot. Guys, what is a right-to-work state? Anybody know what that is? Who here has heard the phrase before? And anybody from 203 wants to help me out can help me out. What's a right-to-work state? Yes?
It's a state where you basically have the right to work without.
That's exactly right. It's what we call at-will employment. Basically, most states in the southern United States, what we refer to as right-to-work states, it means that you cannot be forced to be a member of a labor union to work somewhere, and you can't even be forced to pay union dues in those states either. You can be forced in non-right-to-work states. Right up front, you might say, for example, that this employer is an at-will employer. That means we don't have a union. That means if you want to work here, that's great. If you decide you want to leave, you can leave. If we decide we want you to leave, we can fire you without cause as well. You might also have something on here, criteria for listing references. You might also have in the application notice that you're going to do pre-employment testing or pre-employment screening upon conditional offer of employment. You might also say, for example, how long it's going to take to get back to you on reviewing your resume. And this is a big one, guys. Information falsification. Has anybody ever seen a statement, for example, that basically says, by signing this document, I'm agreeing to state that the following information is true to the best of my ability? You guys know what I'm talking about, that kind of legalese. They put that on job applications too, and here's why. The CEO of Yahoo, 2 CEOs ago, got fired because he said he had a master's degree he really didn't have. So you're talking about one of the biggest internet companies in the world at that time, about 10 years ago, and he got fired because he lied on his resume about having a master's degree he really didn't have. You don't have to be, you can be somebody who's an entry-level job applicant, or you can be the CEO of a major corporation, and you can get nailed for lying on your resume. Now, guys, these are things that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission says that you cannot ask. You cannot ask somebody's marital status on their employment application. Why is that something that we would not want to ask somebody? Yes? It's definitely inappropriate. Why would an employer want to know? Well, let's put it to this way. Let's say, for example, you and I apply for the same job. And I apply that I'm single, I have no wife, no kids. You apply, you say that you're married. Is there a chance you might have kids too? Yeah. And that could be a drain on company insurance. It can mean you're going to be missing more work because you have kids and everything else. That's why it's a question you should not ask. Height and weight. There are exceptions to this, but generally speaking, and this is a big one because of discrimination based on height and weight. Who is the company who tried to get away with not hiring men as waiters? Hooters. Exactly right. We don't want more of that stuff coming. Number and ages of dependents. Again, if you're asking that, oh, you're going to miss a lot of work for those 6 kids that you have. Spousal information. You can't ask that either. Once you hire somebody, you can ask for spousal information, things like emergency contact information or information if they're coming on your insurance program. But beside that, no. Why can't you ask somebody the date they graduated from high school? What's that? Yeah, age discrimination. Emergency contact, not until somebody's hired. Once they're hired, you can ask that information. And under no circumstances should employers on job applications, although they do it, especially the government, it's generally a bad idea to ask for social security numbers because that is your gateway to all the things and information that can hurt you, period. So, that being said, guys, we are right at the edge of the time we have together today. And what I'm going to ask is for those of you who have not yet done your service, give me a minute of your time. I will get you all hooked up. And how many of you are traveling on Friday? All right, for guys who are traveling on Friday, I'll be recording the lecture for you as well. Have a good trip. And for those of you who are traveling, or not traveling, but who are going to be doing service with me, hang out for a minute. Thank you, guys.